Super Mario Maker 2 has a lot of bosses, however the most popular and famous of them all is easily the main villain of the franchise, Bowser. He has a lot of unique mechanics compared to any other enemy. In fact, he's quite different between each of the game styles as well, including the 4 main styles. Unfortunately though, a lot of these attacks end up being pretty chaotic, leading to Bowser being probably the most improperly used asset in the game, at least in my opinion. So to celebrate the launch of 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, I wanted to make a tips video on the main man himself. I'll cover how he works and what's different between each of the themes so that you'll know which style would be best for your level with Bowser in it. I also have quite a few things in this video that I think should be avoided so that you know what sort of things people don't like, alongside actual good ideas of course. Before we start, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, and since only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you did that as well. Enough introduction though, let's jump right into how Bowser is different in each of the themes. This section will only be talking about Bowser in the 4 main styles. We'll get to Meowser in a little bit since he's quite a bit different. First off, the normal Super Mario Bros. Bowser is of course the most basic. In fact, the only thing unique about him is that he doesn't have any unique moves. This one will simply jump around and shoot occasional fire bars at Mario. He obviously can't be jumped on to kill and can only be damaged by fire flowers, Link's weapons, super balls, items thrown by the SCP-2 mushroom, stars, Goomba shoes, bob-ombs, shells, dry bone shells, spike balls, fire clown cars, pows, icicles, being crushed, and lava. I'll go ahead and mention that the other themes can damage Bowser by using their raccoon tail, cape, Yoshi projectiles, and Galoombas. Each of these attacks do a different amount of damage. Bowser normally has 20 HP or 40 if you give him a mushroom. On screen now I have listed the damage values of all the attacks you can do to hurt Bowser in the main 4 styles. The final 2 things this Bowser can do is hover briefly when given wings, and throw lip bombs if they're in a clown car, 2 at normal size and 4 when large. So this version of Bowser is easily the most basic, definitely not a bad thing though. Sometimes you just want a simple boss without any weird attacks, so if you're looking for something more simple, he's your guy. Moving on to Mario 3, who has our first unique Bowser attack. Instead of only shooting fireballs, he'll occasionally jump into the air and ground pound down. Give me a minute. Anyways, this attack will destroy bricks underneath him and activate items as well. If Mario's on the floor when Bowser lands, then Mario will also be stunned for a moment. Aside from this, Bowser remains the same as the original SNB Bowser. Mario World's rendition is probably the most different. First off, this Bowser starts using a mechanic where Mario isn't able to run through him. In the previous 2 themes, Mario could just run through Bowser, however here he's pushed away, even if he has invincibility frames. He's only able to run through Bowser if he has a star equipped, since that'd obviously kill Bowser in the process. Bowser has a brand new jump attack where he'll lunge towards Mario very quickly. I should also mention that he doesn't have the ground pound move from Mario 3, as that move is exclusive there. Finally, this Bowser will also shoot fire into the sky that will eventually fall back onto the level. Our final Bowser for now is the Mario U variation. This also has the pushback mechanic Mario World had. The only new attack this variant has is this sort of ring of fireballs he can do, along with also being able to better aim his normal fireballs towards Mario. There are a few more differences however, like for example, Bowser's fireballs will actually break through certain blocks if he's big. When the big version of this Bowser runs into some breakable blocks, he will also break them. So now that we know about each of the moves for the different Bowsers, let's go ahead and jump into some fun ways to use them. There's one very important part of Bowser's moveset that I haven't mentioned yet, however it is extremely important to take into account when making any level using him. Bowser is able to shoot fireballs from a significantly larger distance than any other enemy that throws projectiles. He's able to shoot fireballs when he's about 2 screens away from Mario, even with scroll stop. This has led to a lot of levels that feature Bowser having him shoot fireballs into a room that he isn't supposed to be interacting with. This feature has led to a lot of unfair deaths, as Bowser fire is completely random of course, and generally the creator did not intend for the fireballs to be there. It's usually a pretty clear sign of bad design if your level contains Bowser shooting into different rooms. So then, what can we do to fix this problem? Well, the easiest solution would be placing the room that Bowser's in a little bit more than 2 screens away, or placing the room in a sub-area. Usually you won't use the entire space given to you for your level, so just leaving some space between your other rooms and your boss room could save your level from seeming a bit poorly made. The other way you could fix this issue would be, well, using this mechanic for its intended use. Normally, in some of the mainline titles, Mario would have to go through a hallway before reaching Bowser, which is what this feature is trying to replicate. So you could just make a hallway of your own to add in here, which could help your level to feel more traditional. These hallways usually also have pits and walls in them to make them more interesting. You generally don't want a completely blank and featureless hallway. So in short, just make sure to take Bowser's long distance fireball attacks into account, and make sure to always playtest your levels. Try standing at the edge of each room for a few seconds if you have a Bowser in the level, just to test if he's too close. If he is, then you're going to need to move him back. Alright, now we've got ourselves the first boss idea using Bowser. Mario is stuck in a small room with a few on-off switches lining the floor. It's obvious that he needs to defeat Bowser in order to move on, but he has no tools to do so. Mario also isn't able to hit the on-off switches either, so what is he going to do? Well, if you haven't noticed yet, this is the Mario 3 variation of Bowser, so by leading him into the right spot, Mario can actually get Bowser to hit the switch for him. This dispenses out a Koopa, which Mario can use to hit Bowser. After the Koopa spawns, the area closes, requiring Bowser to hit the switch again. 4 hits with the big Koopa shell will cause Bowser to be defeated and allow Mario to leave. Alright, let's go over what we see here. First, the main area is pretty simple, just have on-off switches placed into the floor. You can have as many or you can have as little as you would like, however I personally wouldn't suggest making the whole thing switches as that'd make the fight a little bit too easy. I also used hard blocks as the floor here, which aren't important and they could really be anything indestructible by Bowser, I just thought they looked nice here. Now onto our 2 side setups outside of the boss room itself. First off, we have a blue pipe with a Koopa inside of it, and then we cover that pipe with dotted line blocks. It's important that the pipe is actually covered because if the blocks are placed lower, for example, then a ton of Koopas can actually spawn in between hits. Have a one-way block Mario from going where the Koopas are, and that section is all set. The reason I specified it being a blue pipe is because it will only spawn in one Koopa for the duration that the on-off switch is flipped. In order to flip it back to what it was before Bowser hit the switch, we have a red pipe with lit bombs in it, covered by red dotted line blocks with switches on top. This will make the dotted line blocks fill back in after the Koopa spawns so that Mario will keep needing to have Bowser land on the switch. This method for hitting the switch allows enough time for one Koopa to spawn but switches quickly enough so that a second one doesn't also come out. Depending on if you give Mario a mushroom beforehand, this can be decently difficult. This can also be customized in order to make it harder. Personally, I like the way it works here, but if you want to, you can make the Koopas small, for example, which do less damage. Though I think that could possibly be a bit too tedious for some people. Final note, this obviously only works on the Mario 3 Bowser, as it's the only one to have the ground pound ability. Still, this is a pretty fun and unique boss fight. Moving from there, Mario's in another room with Bowser, however this time there's a wall separating the two. Bowser is still able to shoot fireballs at Mario, so he has to try to avoid these. In order to attack Bowser here, Mario has to hit these on-off switches when a Koopa lands on top of them so that he can shoot out their shells. Now these can't always just hit him, Mario needs to time his jump so that the shell will hit Bowser while he's jumping. After 4 hits, Mario is able to take down Bowser to move on. However, in a parallel universe, Toad over here misses Bowser and hits the switch 8 times, which causes the floor below him to vanish. If you don't want to end up like Toad, you're going to want to make sure to use less than 8 hits to defeat Bowser. So what's going on here? Starting off with Bowser, he's trapped in a small hole. He's able to peek out of it every now and again with his jumps, but he can't go too far as this one way stops him from escaping. Bowser's also given wings so that he can hover for a little bit, which makes this a lot less annoying. If he didn't have wings, you basically would not be able to react to him jumping and would just have to guess when he's about to do it. The Koopa launching chamber is a slight bit more complicated. You have to have a vertical pipe facing downward with a big Koopa, which goes into a small area that's blocked off by a one-way. This ground block makes it so that the Koopa will stay in place and the vertical pipe with the one-way will stop multiple Koopas from entering the chamber at once. For whatever reason, if a sideways pipe is used, multiple Koopas will be able to enter, which is not good because then the shells will hit each other and just break. Above the Koopas have a spring resting on a cloud so that they can shoot forward when Mario boosts them up by hitting the switch. I also have a gap for the Koopa shells to fall into once they pass Bowser so they don't just rebound and hit him. These hard blocks are also just here to play the sound effect to signify a miss, so they aren't necessary if you wanted to make something like this. Now you could leave the boss just like this, however I think it's more interesting if you add a limit to how many shots Mario can shoot. For this, I simply have a muncher on top of dotted line blocks which lead to a P-switch. Since the floor below Mario is made of P-switch blocks, this will obviously kill him if the muncher lands on top of the P-switch. Make sure that the dotted line blocks are spaced well enough so that Mario can't kill the muncher while it's moving. If he has a super mushroom here, Mario can actually hit the switch fast enough to destroy the muncher, so I suggest either moving the floor down or not giving him a mushroom at all if you don't want to run into this issue. But in the end, this is a pretty fun and difficult boss fight, especially really good for a level that's based around shooting Koopa shells at things. Okay, we've talked a bit about some actual fights with Bowser, but what can we do with him outside of the boss fights? Honestly, not that much, but I do have one thing here. In the Mario U style, since Bowser is able to angle his fireballs downwards, we can actually recreate meteors falling from the sky. Jumping into this example here, we see that Bowser's fireballs will come crashing down towards Mario and possibly destroy blocks along the way. We currently don't have any meteor elements in the game, so this is the next best thing. In order to create this effect, you need to have your level be an auto-scroller. I think the slowest speed here works the best by a long shot. Use the custom variation so that the player can't scroll the screen upwards to see the Bowsers. Then above the player's line of sight, place tracks in a pattern like this across all the level. This will ensure that Bowser stays in sync with the scroll and won't go past it. Basically, you have 2 tracks, then one pointing directly upwards, and then one pointing diagonally down. On these tracks, place 3 big Bowsers. Using any less than this, I found made the Meteors much less prominent than they likely should be. Finally, place a row of blocks so Mario can't accidentally jump into the Bowsers, and then you're all set. From there, you can just build your level around these Meteors. It's not a perfect recreation as the fireballs are always sent at an angle, but it's the closest thing we'll get, and I think it's a creative way to use Bowser in a non-boss setting. Alright, this right here is by far the most important Bowser tip I can give you. In fact, this is one of the most important Mario Maker tips I can give. That tip is, do not do fireball spamming Bowser fights. These are basically levels where you have to fight Bowser by killing him with fireballs, which you get from a pipe dispensing fire flowers. These have been absolutely done to death and are completely unfun to do. They aren't challenging in the slightest since you keep getting a refill on your power-up, so you can never really die. Whenever I see something like this in a level, it's very disappointing, especially if I have to do it on a big Bowser, as that will take 40 fireball hits to defeat. Now with that said, you could still use fire flowers to defeat Bowser, of course, just make it more interesting and challenging than just simply having Mario stand next to Bowser with a pipe giving him power-ups. By the way, I call this fireball spam, but this goes for Bowser fights where you have to use other things as well, like the Tanuki Tail, Cape, etc. Nobody likes levels like this, as all they do is slow down the level's pace without adding in anything of substance. I'm not saying that your boss fights have to be complicated or super creative though. Even just having a Bowser on a bridge like in a traditional level works well, and can even be better than a super complex boss fight for some levels. So again, before moving from normal Bowser to Meowser, I'm going to say it one more time. Do not make infinite spawning fireball spamming Bowser fights. They're overdone, tedious, and boring. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about was Meowser and how to use him correctly. Now if you all saw my boss ranking video, you would know that I think Meowser is the worst boss in the game, no contest, and that's just because of its mechanics. Just like the previous Bowsers, it's able to shoot fireballs, however what makes Meowser unique is that it's able to go into the background and foreground, meaning that containing it is impossible. Not only that, but if you give it wings, it will shoot fireballs from the background as well. This means that fun or unique boss fights with Meowser are pretty impossible. It doesn't help that him going into the background makes fireball spamming fights 5 times more tedious as you have to wait for him to return. All of this means that I honestly don't think it works as a boss at all. Just because that it doesn't work as a boss that you have to defeat though, doesn't mean it can't work at all. The way you have to use him is far different from all the other bosses though. Since his attacks are far more chaotic than the others, the only real way to use him is if the whole level is based and designed around him. Once Meowser spawns, you'll follow the player until they either enter a door, warp box, pipe, or have Meowser die. This means the best way to use Meowser is to have him chase Mario through a large section of a level. He's very hard to use well and is quite different from the other Bowsers, but if you really want to use him, this is the best way to do it. Place Meowser either near the start or in a sub-area to begin his large chase sequences. This pretty much is the only way to use Meowser super well, which is a big shame, but if you want to get it to work, then they could be very helpful for this specific scenario. I unfortunately still think he's the worst boss in the game, and that also means that this segment is super short because this is really the only use I could find for Meowser. He just really does not work at all as a boss fight. But anyways, that's it for this video. Do you all think the ground pound from a Goomba shoe one-hit killing Bowser is absurd? Let me know in the comments. This one was fun to come up with ideas for, but it was also really tricky because I didn't want to reuse ideas I already did in older videos, like the Spike Ball and of course the Boss Ideas video. So if you want more on Bowser, check those videos out as well because I also made different Bowser boss fights there. Before you do though, make sure to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it because it seriously helps out a ton. Now then, I've got to go play through Bowser's Fury because I have quite a few good ideas for videos on that game that I can't quite make until I beat it. So anyways, dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.